I'm sure you've seen pie charts. That's where you have a circle, so it's sometimes called a circle graph, and the circle is divided into different sections, like a pie with different pieces cut out of the pie, and it's used to show what fraction or what percentage of some total falls into each of several categories. Here's an example showing what percentage of all the people who have been tested for coronavirus in Logan County, which is where Lincoln College is. Right now, some of them have tested positive and some have tested negative. And looking at the graph, you can see right away, most of the people have tested negative. Only a few have tested positive. It's a small sliver of the pie. A while back, not this semester, but a semester or two ago, when I asked my statistics students what their major was, here are the responses I got. The most common response was pre-nursing. 27% of the people I asked said they were majoring in nursing or pre-nursing. Other popular choices were exercise science, business, criminal justice, sports management. And then the people who said something else, either they said something that nobody else said or they were undecided, got lumped in this category here. But all of the people in my statistics classes that I surveyed that semester got divided up into these different categories. The bigger the slice of the pie, the more people there were in that category, the bigger a percentage of the whole thing that was. So let's do one of these ourselves so that we see how it works. Let's construct a pie chart showing the responses that you guys gave to one of the things I asked you on that introductory survey was whether you agree or disagree with the statement, I like math. You could either strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree, or be neutral. So this shows how many people gave each of those responses. And so I'm going to take this. Everybody falls into one of these categories. If you answered that question, you got counted in one of these categories. So let's see how the whole class divides up. To do this, at least if we're doing it by hand, first thing we need to do is find out what the total is. Because we need to know the relative frequencies or the percents. What percent of the total students that I surveyed falls into each of these categories. So if you add all these numbers together, they add up to 45. Now we need to calculate the percents. The way we do that is by dividing. So if I want to know what the percent is for 6, what percent is 6 out of 45 total? Just do 6 divided by 45, and that shows up as 0.1333 and so on. Now that's the relative frequency in decimal form. To convert it to a percent, we need to multiply that by 100, which really just moves the decimal point over 2 places. So that's 13.333, or just to the nearest whole percent, that would be 13%. Then 12 out of 45 would be 0.266, so that's about 26.6 something. To the nearest whole percent, it would be 27%. 27% of the people agree. They don't strongly agree, but they agree that I like math. 19 out of 45 is 42%. 6 out of 45, well, we already did that once. It's the same thing again, 13%. And 2 out of 45 is 4.4444, but to the nearest whole percent, that would be 4%. So there's our percents. Now, by the way, if you decided to check this and add up these percents 13 plus 27 plus 42 plus 13 plus 4 adds up to 99. We have a total of 99%. What's going on here? Do you know? Do you know why these add up to only 99% and not 100%? Well, what's going on is we got a little bit of round-off error. The percent isn't exactly 13%, it's 13 point something. So these have all been rounded, and we lost a little bit of accuracy that way. Sometimes the round-off errors cancel out and the percents do add up to 100% exactly, but sometimes we're a little bit off and they add up to like 99% or 101%. So that's what happened here. If we hadn't rounded these, if we'd given all the decimal places, then they would have added up to 100%. So now let's draw our pie chart. We start by drawing a circle. If you're good at drawing circles just by hand, you can just draw one. If you're not so good, you can find something that's round, like a quarter or a bottle cap or something like that, and trace around it. And now, if you wanted to draw a really nice, perfect pie chart, where all the segments were exactly the right size, you could get a protractor to measure angles, and all the way around a circle would be 360 degrees. So you can work out, okay, like what's 13% of 360 degrees? And that would tell you what size angle you need to draw for that segment of the pie chart. And what's 27% of 360 degrees, and so on. So if you wanted to be really precise and accurate in your drawing, that's how you could do it, but nobody does that anymore. If you really want a nice, professional-looking pie chart, you just get a computer to draw it for you. And in a minute here, I'll show you how you can do that. But if we are doing it by hand, and we don't need to worry about getting it perfect, just good enough, let's see how we can do pretty well just drawing by hand. If you divide the circle in half, just split the pie into 2 equal halves, each one of those halves would be 50% of the pie chart. So if any one of these said 50%, that would just be half of the circle. Now actually all of these are less than 50%, so each one of these is going to be less than half of the circle. Now if we cut it in half the other way, now we've divided the pie up into fourths, into quarters. So each one of these would be 25%. So if any one of these percents was exactly 25%, we'd have our piece of the pie for that one. The 27% is going to be a little bit bigger than one of these quarters. The 42% is going to be a lot bigger than a quarter, but less than a half. And then the others that are less than 25%, they're going to be smaller than one of these. Let's divide things up a little further. If we take one of these quarters and kind of eyeball it and divide it up into 5 equal pieces, so here, 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 and here, each one of those would represent 5% of the whole thing. So we've taken our 25% and divided it by 5, so each one of these represents 5%. And if I want to go ahead and draw in one of these segments, let me start with the biggest one, 42%. So if I mark off, here's 25, 30, 35, 40, and I don't want to go all the way to 45, but I can go a little past 40 into 42 and stop there. So there's the 42% of the circle for the people who were neutral. They don't have a strong feeling either way about math. Now let me fill in 27. Remember, that was a little bit more than 25. So here's 25. I went a little bit past that for 27, and that's my agree section. Next, I'll fill in 13% for strongly agree. Notice there's 3% left over here between these two marks, and then I can do 5, 10 more. So 5, 10, 13. There's 13% for strongly agree. Then we got another 13% for disagree and 4% for strongly disagree. So there's our pie chart. Looks pretty good. Now, if you wanted to be fancy, you could color the different sections different colors, but you don't have to. Just make sure each one is labeled with what it represents. We need the name of the category it represents and also what percent of the whole thing it is. So here's the 42% who are neutral. That's this section of the pie. Here's the 13% who strongly agree, the 13% who disagree, the 4% who strongly disagree, the 27% who agree. Now, how would you do this in Excel, which is one easy way of getting a computer to draw a pie chart for you? So I would open up an Excel spreadsheet and I would just type in my category names and my frequencies. We just need the numbers. We don't need to tell Excel what the percentages are. It can figure that out for itself. And once I've got all the data in here, I can select it. Now go back up to Insert. Click on the word Insert at the top, so we go to that tab. And click on the little picture of the pie chart. And now you can get it to make a 3D pie chart, but those aren't very good because you're looking at it from an angle that kind of distorts things and doesn't always give you a clear idea of the relative sizes of the sectors. So let's just stick with a two-dimensional pie chart. So when I click that, it comes up. It's got the 5 sections, but I want the labels directly on the sections. So I can go over here to Quick Layout, pick the first one there. That's the one where it labels the sections of the chart directly with what they represent, the names and also the percentages. And then there's other things you can do you can give it a title, you can change how this is formatted, change the colors that are used, the size of the font, things like that. I'm not going to show you how to do that here, but we are going to get into some of that when you get into doing things with Excel in the project that you're going to be working on. So there's a computer-generated pie chart. The sections are in a little different place relative to each other. So the neutral is down here instead of up here, but they are the same size relative to one another. So there's our pie chart with the 5 sections, the right size relative to one another. Neutral is the biggest. Disagree and strongly agree are the same size as each other. Strongly disagree looks pretty small. 27% is twice as big as 13% about. So this section is about twice as big as this one or as this one. I have a couple more things to say about pie charts, but I'll save that for the next video. We'll talk a little more about pie charts and then we'll get into stem and leaf plots.